More business news. India's annual retail inflation eased to a 3-month low in September on the back of softer food prices and government subsidies, offsetting a surge in the cost of crude oil. CPI inflation rising 5.02% last month from 6.83% in August, easing more than expected. A food inflation, which accounts for nearly half of the overall consumer price basket, also easing to 6.56% in September. And for more, Rebecca Bundan joins us live from Mumbai. Rebecca, government subsidies we just heard to offset higher crude oil and softer food prices. So that explains part of why inflation has eased. Are there any other factors that would contribute to more sustained easing of inflation in the months ahead?
Yes, that's right. This retail inflation data for September came in lower than analysts had even expected, at just above 5%. And that's certainly good news for policymakers, because the central bank's target is to keep inflation within the band of 2% to 6%. And that follows inflation rising to above 7% in August, then above 6% above 7% in July, and then above 6% in August. So this is a significant easing now. And there are a number of factors that have actually played a role in this. Yes, food prices we see have actually eased, and that makes up about almost half of that inflation basket, with vegetable prices in particular coming down to just above 3% in terms of inflation. However, there are some areas that still remain a concern. We saw that spices were up 23% inflation, and cereals about 10%. So there are still some problematic areas. We've also seen the government taking a number of steps to actually try to improve the food price situation, given the impact that has on poor people, for example. So they did take steps, including a ban on wheat exports earlier this year. And also there was a move by the Finance Ministry to actually impose a 40% duty on exports of onions when onion prices were spiking. So there was also a ban that came into effect on some types of rice. So we've seen the government taking significant steps, and all this has actually helped, as well as the fact that the Reserve Bank of India, since last May, has increased interest rates by about 250 basis points.
Rebecca, you mentioned government action, and we've seen that. I mean, we mentioned that just about every other day on this news bulletin. Sugar prices, rice prices, the effect of bad weather, the lowest monsoon rainfall in years on exports of staples such as sugar and rice. Do we foresee any more government action given elections next year?
Well, yes, this is a big concern at the moment. The fact that in August, India really saw a deficient rainfall in many parts of the country, and that's expected to potentially have an impact on crops, and that affects everybody. That affects rural incomes. That also impacts food prices if crop production is insufficient as a result of that lack of rain, given the fact that the monsoon really plays a massive role in providing water for the country and for irrigation. And we do have general elections coming up next year. And of course, when you have higher food prices, that really hurts the poor in particular. So that's a large vote bank for the government. Of course, they really feel the pain when food prices rise. So if there is the need to do something, the government will, of course, have to take further action to ensure that people can continue to afford to buy food, because that's really been a big headache for people over the past few months. In particular, last year, food inflation was really persistent, and it's a bit of a relief now that it's coming down, but there still remain these risks on the horizon.
Thanks, Rebecca Bundan reporting live just there from Mumbai.